Here are the pieces that you need to make a neck facing. Your back bodice, your front bodice, the front facing and interfacing. They should match the same shape here. And the back facings should also match here. You'll then take your interfacing and they should match the bottom edge but be slightly smaller around the neck and shoulder edge. The first step for making this technique is to take the bumpy side of your interfacing, which is the glue, and put it facing out on the facing. So you're going to be sewing along this outside edge with the bumpy side of your interfacing facing up and the right side of your facing up. So you're looking at the wrong side of your facing and the bumpy side of your interfacing. And you will be sewing at 1/4 inch around this outside edge. So now you can see in the red stitching that I have sewn the interfacing to the facing at just 1/4 inch along the bottom edge. So not the neck edge, but the lower edge, okay? And then you're going to flip it and iron it so that when you turn it this way, your edge will be finished and you will fuse your interfacing to the wrong side of the facing. So you're going to turn it so that the edge is all out along that edge, and then we're going to press it, and the heat of the iron is going to fuse that interfacing to the facing. Once your interfacing is fused to the back of the facing, you can see that this edge is nice and finished along the bottom edge. So this is the wrong side of your bodice. So you flip it over and you can see that once it's sewn in, you'll have a nice finished edge along the bottom. So the next step will be to put your shoulder seams together so that you have your shoulder seams together for your bodice here. This is center back, center front. And you will do the same thing. You'll sew your shoulder seams for the bodice, and you'll sew the shoulder seams for your facings. So we're going to put them right sides together, and we're going to sew across here and here, just like that. So that's going to create your neckline. All right, so we're going to sew facing shoulder seams and bodice shoulder seams. Okay, so now we have our shoulder seams sewn so that you have your center back here, your center front here, shoulders. And so we're going to finish this edge with your facing. So we sewed the shoulder seams as well. You can sew these shoulder seams and then do your interfacing fusing. I chose to do them separately so that you could see the processes here, but you can do this as one piece. In other words, sew your shoulders first. So now you're going to take the right side of your facing and put it to the right side of your garment, like this. And you're going to sew the neckline edge. Usually in patterns, this seam allowance is about 3/8 of an inch, not your traditional 5/8 or half. So on this example though, I'm just using very small seam allowances, and I'm using the red thread so that you can see the seams. But on yours, obviously you are going to use matching threads and matching products. Your facing is usually also the same as your outside fashion fabric, but so that you can see it better, I've chosen a darker one. So now we're going to sew around the neckline only and then press it flat. So now you can see the stitching around the neckline and the pressing toward the inside. You don't want to press, obviously, a lot of folds into that facing. You just want to press it toward the seam allowance, because the next step is called understitching, and that's going to be a stitching on the facing through the seam allowance, just catching the facing and the seam allowance. So we're going to pull the facing toward the inside, and so approximately 1/8 of an inch in from the stitching that you first did. So we're going to stitch around this whole neck edge on the inside. This is going to help keep this facing to the inside of the garment, because as it is now, it's going to try to roll out, and you don't want it to roll out. You want it to stay in, so that when it's inside, this will be all nice and flat. All right. So here you see the understitching in red. What that did is it just stitched in the seam allowance. So you see that second row of red stitching is just the understitching, catching the interfacing, the facing, and the seam allowance. And then you just turn it to the inside and press, so that your outside is beautiful and finished neckline, and your inside is beautiful and finished neckline. I hope that this helps you to create beautiful inside of your garment as much as the outside of your garment.